Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Uncover Never-Ending Listings with Never-Ending Referrals with MAPS Coach Steve Schlueter. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Fast Track YouTube channel. You may access the YouTube channel from your Zoom confirmation email, and we will also share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone's on mute. We do value group participation, so we ask that if you have any questions for your coach, please type them into the chat box below and they will be addressed throughout the webinar. Following this meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or our coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That is FASTTRACK@kw.com. And that's all for me, Steve. Take it away.
Hey, thank you, Rodrigo. Really appreciate that. Hey, well, welcome. Hey, we got a little small group today. We've been doing these little introductory sessions to Never-Ending Referrals for Market Center. So I trust I got, Penny, Mackenzie, Leslie, thank you for being here. And by the way, if there's any way you could go on video, I'd love to engage with you and have this be a participatory opportunity. Now, if you've got lunch and salad hanging out of your teeth, I mean, then, okay, yeah, I get it. You might want to be on off video, but hey, well, yeah, I'm hungry too. I don't mind sharing lunch with you. It's just fine. Let's get started. First and foremost, my name is Steve Schlueter, and let me go ahead and highlight this real quick. My name is Steve Schlueter. I'm the co-coach with Tammy Youngst in a program called Never-Ending Referrals. And today, we're taking a little kind of jog down, exploring the opportunity for our market centers and our agents to secure more listings. Now, in this particular session, we invited market center leadership. And so, Penny, Dario, Mackenzie, Leslie, share with me what role y'all play in your market centers.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Portugal. I'm team leader of a market center in Setúbal near Lisbon, South area.
Fantastic. All the way from Portugal today. Thanks for tuning in. Really,
you're welcome.
My brother-in-law and sister-in-law have a condo in Lisbon. They love Portugal. So they've traveled the whole world and they decided to buy in Portugal. That has to say something significant about your country. So
yeah, it's the best rectangle in the whole world.
What's that now?
It's the best rectangle in the whole world.
I don't know. Leads, listings, and leverage is pretty good too. So I don't know, Dario. We'll have to play with that one. And yet I bet it is. So I appreciate that. Somebody else chime in. Tell us what role you play in your market center.
I am an ALC member and I am interviewing to be TL.
All right, David, fantastic. What part of the country?
Chesterfield, Michigan, so kind of Detroit area.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for being with us today, David. And Penny, are you an agent? Are you in part of the leadership team in your market center?
So I was on the ALC for several years, and right now I have just my team, me and one other person on the team, the Spokane Real Estate Group.
All right, Spokane, love that wonderful city. Tell Bruce Hardy hello for me.
I will.
There you go. Well, we're going to get started, and I'm going to encourage anybody that that would like to chime in and get involved in this discussion. Today's discussion, as we had promoted in the webinar, is really aimed at market center leadership. And boy, that's a big mug of me you've got, Megan, on that, or Rodrigo on that login. So that's fun. I get to look at my big head. That's okay. As we get started today, let me just tell you a little about my background. Again, my name's Steve Schlueter. I'm the co-coach of Never-Ending Referrals, MAPS coaching program. I'm also the operator of 2 market centers. I've got 2 market centers in the northern suburbs of the Austin area. I also play a leadership role in a market center and a 900 agent market center in San Antonio. The fancy title is the Executive Director of Agent Experience. And essentially, I lead all our productivity initiatives in that market center. So I live in San Antonio. I've got market centers in the Austin area, Bold Coach and MAPS Group Coach. But just a little background on myself. prior to joining Keller Williams, I was one of the top 20 RE/MAX agents in the state of Texas. And I got courted by a gentleman named Gary Keller to lead his Austin Northwest Market Center as a team leader. And so I spent 4.5 years, 98 to 2003, as a team leader with Gary Keller as my OP. And so really interesting, formative times in our company. These are the pre-MREA days when our masterminds were developing the models for this. And our market center during that time was recognized by Real Trends as the 4th highest producing real estate office in the country, all companies, in terms of units. So productivity has always been my jam. And today, one of the biggest challenges we're facing, whether it's Penny, you as an agent, or David, you going into your market center as a team leader, is how do I get agents productive, particularly in the area of listings right now? And Dario, is there a listing shortage in Portugal too, just like the rest of the world? You guys are facing.
Yes.
Right.
We are facing several challenges regarding listings.
Perfect. So good. It's a global, situation. And so what we're going to really talk about today is discuss a path to taking our agents to securing more listings, which number one is going to give them a more stable, elegant business and a more sustainable business over time. We've always heard, if you've been in the industry a long time, like myself, we've always heard that saying, list to last, and it's extremely accurate. It certainly gives you more control of your life and your business. And so I want to ask, for a little participation from you guys, and what do you believe is, and there's no right or wrong answer, what do you believe is the most underutilized approach to securing listings on the part of most of us or most of our associates? Where are we missing listing opportunities? What would be your guess?
This is just my opinion, being out lead generated. It just seems like, especially newly licensed people, it's hard to get them to buy in to lead gen. and how much you have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so making it a habit, getting conditioned to do it. All right, somebody else. So just not buying in the lead gen. Anybody else?
In Portugal, we have a huge difference between the number of sellers and the number of buyers, and it's more comfortable to get on with the buyers that be with the sellers. That's and as David said, the lead gen people don't get into lead gen, and it's easier for them to talk with a buyer than with a seller.
Yeah, you really, it's a great point, Dario, because buyers seem like the default thing that people navigate to early in their career, and then of course sellers are much more skill set based, right? It is a critical skill that it takes to be effective with buyers, and especially when they're cold relationships, they're not established relationships. The skill set level has to go even higher. And yet the interesting thing we know from the National Association of Realtor Statistics here in the United States is that, gosh, only about 80% of sellers only talk to one agent. And, it's how do you make sure you're that agent? And that becomes, critical job one. So everything y'all said is right. Anybody else have any other thoughts on where we're missing the boat with securing listings? All right, then I'm gonna go into it.
I actually have a small one. At least in my area, on social media, I like the high quality. And I'll use them as an example. There's some EXP people who do a very good job of the light and bright new, and I know to an experienced home buyer, home seller, the flashiness doesn't matter, but at the same time there is a huge population that they're just drawn to that. And so I don't know if we need to teach our agents how to make those high quality videos, or it just, becomes a part of KW? I'm not sure. I don't have the answer.
Well, David, you make a great point, and that is that, it's today. You go in here in San Antonio and you look into the MLS, and you look at photographs of listings, and it's interesting to see a $700,000 listing that somebody took photographs with their Galaxy or iPhone. Now, those are pretty good cameras, but they're not professional lighting and all the things that should happen in that environment. And as a result, that's their audition for their next listing. And, and really, you think whether it's video or whether it's the photographs you post on your listing, people are taking shortcuts. And that is you got to think about every listing, David, and I think you just called it out. That's your audition for your next listing. Yeah. You got to make it really look good. Hey, David Rays. So again, just as for some of y'all that have come in late, my name's Steve Schlueter. This conversation is driven towards market center leadership. Some of you are here as agents because you want to talk about obtaining more listings, and that's perfectly fine. You get to hang out with us. And the opportunity we're going to talk about today, I'm going to ask you to take back to your market center leadership, because we're all leaders, and leadership knows no position. And the number one issue for all of us is securing more inventory. It's going to make our offices stronger, our individual business stronger, our team stronger, and give us more quality of life, as we dive into this. So let me go to work, and I want to share with you a couple of things. And it really begins with, and David, I think you said it, with how our agents show up and who they're showing up with. And I'm going to go to a PowerPoint real quick, if you guys will give me just a second to pull this up. And I want you to draw this, make a note with this here somewhere. This little thing called the trust triangle. You go full screen with it. And this is a conversation that Gary Keller and Jay Papasan were having mega leadership last year. And I overheard the conversation, and they were talking about how leaders develop trust in the people that they lead. And when I heard that conversation, I said, this is exactly how our agents build trust with the relationships that they have, i.e. their database. And I'm going to take a position today that the biggest opportunity that is missed by most of our associates and that is underutilized is the relationships that they already have. And I'll demonstrate how that's really true through another agent story here in a few minutes. But let's go through what an agent has to do to establish this position of being what we call the trusted advisor for the people in their database. Guys, excuse me, I've been fighting off a little something. And so let's go to the left side of the triangle, the lower left, and it says logic. And the logic piece says, I know you can do it. Your reasoning and judgment are sound. So what happens if we're going to build trust with a group of people, a database, a geo farm, business to business contacts, whoever it is, if we're going to be trusted as the local trusted real estate advisor, logic comes into play. They've got to have a sense that our reasoning and judgment are sound. In other words, they believe that you or your agents, they know the real estate business and they understand the market of the moment right now. Now, on the right side, the empathy piece is they believe that you care about them and their success or their well-being. And then at the top, it's authenticity. They experience the real you. They have a sense when they have a conversation with you or they get something real from you that this is true to who you are. They see an authentic human being that they're engaged with versus a salesperson or a salesy delivery or encounter. And so when they experience the real you, everybody has this thing, I call it a BS detector. believability scale, by the way. You thought I was being naughty, I know. But everybody's got a believability scale. You get in an encounter with somebody, and there's a filter that you run through that says, do I believe what they're saying? Does that sound right? You know, do I buy it? And when you can hit all three of these points, then you have the foundation for a trusted relationship. Now, here's what I'm going to say first about logic. Logic is going to be established by how our agents show up essentially in their marketing, in their interpretation of the market. They've got to, hang on. All right. I'm going Ricola on you here, guys. Hang on. So the logic piece is usually done through your marketing, whether it's email, direct mail, whatever it is. It's demonstrating that you understand the market. It's demonstrating that your agents understand the market and it has what Jason Abram calls MOFRs, right? Making offers for immediate response, asking them to engage with you. Now, when we think about that, let me keep the PowerPoint going. And that's really going to be done in their hyper-local 36 to 40 touch campaign. And there's a sample of some that we run in our market centers. You know, ideally, they've got a couple of direct mail pieces a month going to their database, a local expert email, and they're making a quarterly call. The other thing that our agents really have to reconcile to get to the empathy piece is to understand, and I want you to write this down, that the conversation is the relationship. That comes from Susan Scott in Fierce Conversations, that the conversation is the relationship. And Susan Scott shares that all relationships succeed or fail one conversation or one missing conversation at a time. And if I'm going to build a real trusted relationship, it's not going to happen by me hiding behind email. And I'm going to have to reconcile at some point, you know, David, to your point, I got to pick up the phone. I got to be consistent with it. I got to have these conversations. Sorry, guys. I've got to have these conversations. And you know, this is best demonstrated. I'm going to share with you a story real quick, and some of you may have heard this before. A lady named Barbara DeLamo lives in San Antonio. She's an agent here. About 3 years ago, I'm driving down the interstate coming back from Austin to San Antonio, and my dashboard lights up with a phone call coming in, and it says Barbara DeLamo. And it's a 2-1 area code, so I know it's San Antonio. And yet all of a sudden I'm going, who's Barbara DeLamo? She's coming up on my dash. I must know her, but I can't place her. Because she's obviously in my contacts, I decide I'm going to take the call. And I go, you know, hit the button, and you've probably done this too. You just act like you know them. And I'm going, hey, Barbara, what can I do for you? And she goes, well, and I got to use Barbara's voice, and I'll see if I can't get it out. She goes, well, hi, Steve. And I'm going, well, hey, Barbara. And she goes, hey, I was calling to wish you happy birthday. And I said, well, Barbara, thanks. I said, my birthday's not for another 3 weeks. You're a little early. She goes, I know. I wanted to be the first one. Am I the first one? And I said, well, you sure are. And still, guys, I'm having no clue. Who is Barbara? I have no idea. And then she continues, and she goes, you know, are you still out coaching Bold? I said, as a matter of fact, I am. And she goes, well, geez, you know, I took the first Bold that you did in San Antonio back in 2009. She goes, you know, and you know, I love Bold. Now I've got context for the relationship, right? I know where the connection is. And as we're chatting, she talked about Bold for a couple of minutes and how that was going for her and her world. And then she said, you know, you had a girlfriend that lived here in San Antonio. I know she sponsored one of our Bolds. you guys still together? And I said, as a matter of fact, we are. And she said, well, what was her name? And I said, Shelly. And she said, y'all still together? I said, we are. And she said, yeah, she was really cool. And in fact, Steve, I know you were even from this area originally, grew up around, or in New Braunfels, and you'd even talked about maybe moving back towards San Antonio. Did you ever make the move? I said, yeah, I've been in San Antonio over a couple of years now. And she goes, man, I guess I was a little late on that one. I said, well, of course, I represented myself. And, they went on to ask us, what we were doing in San Antonio, what we're doing for fun. And we talked about a few things. She gave me a brunch recommendation to a little place called Mimosas. And then lastly, she said, what kind of big plans do you and Shelly have coming up? We talked about, a pending trip to Egypt and a trip to Russia. By the way, we've canceled the Russia. We're not going to Russia. So not happening. We want to come back. So although we are leaving for Africa on Friday. So we're going to Africa instead of Russia. So and so we have a little conversation about these plans, and then the phone call wraps up, and it was all of 5 to 6 minutes. And now Barbara and I are completely connected. We're completely in flow. And here's the interesting part of this. Barbara, when I hung up the phone, I had this little epiphany. I said, something on my dash. When I hung up, I noticed on my dash, it said maybe Barbara DeLamo, not Barbara DeLamo, which meant she was in communication via email in my system, not that I had her in my contacts. And so with that in mind, I went to my email. And let me show you what I found. I had been getting an email consistently every 3 weeks on average from Barbara for 7 years. So what's your aha? David?
Power is in the follow-up.
Have a conversation, right? Yeah. Power's in the follow-ups. It's in the conversation. See, Barbara, probably like many of our agents, many of us even, she thought she was doing the right thing. She had me on a drip email campaign, and little did she know that it was completely ineffective. Now, the rest of the story is this, is 2 weeks later, I got her normal email. What did I do with it? I opened it. Didn't go word for word, skimmed it. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, got another one, opened it. Barbara, through one conversation, had put us in flow. And by the way, what kind of conversation was that she had with me? David, you know what that conversation was, David Rice. She forwarded me. It was a forward conversation. She asked about occupation, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. She asked about family with Shelly. She asked about occupation with Bold. What are we doing for fun in San Antonio, recreation? What are our big future plans, the trips, dreams? Excuse me, folks. So all that said is, for everything else to work, the foundational linchpin is the conversation. And one of the things that our agents struggle with is how to have these types of value add conversations and how to show up as the trusted advisor. And the Never Ending Referrals program is designed to tackle that. And, I want to talk to you about something aspirational today. And you want to write some of these numbers down. I'm going to go old school PowerPoint from you. So I want you to write down 330 million. And by the way, that's the US population. I want you to divide 330 million by 2.53, which is the average US household size. So that means there's 130 million households in the United States. So let's take a look at this. Take the 130 million households, and I want you to multiply that by 0.65. And you're going to get roughly 84 million. The 65% is the number of households that are homeowners. So if we want to get listings, are we communicating with the 84 million households as a trusted advisor? And so here's the big aspirational goal, is within Keller Williams to take 84 million households to identify and develop over the course of the next 3 years, 120,000 trusted advisors. So you take the 84 million owned households, you divide it by 120,000 trusted advisors that you guys can develop in your market centers, or you can develop as yourself individually. And then what you're left with is the number 700. How do we, over the next 3 years, get every agent or 120,000 agents to adopt 700 households to be their trusted advisor in a way that they've fulfilled those points on that trust triangle? Another great triangle, Daniel. You know, so this becomes the challenge. Now, one of the ways to do this is we have to create an immersion for agents in how to be effective with their database. And this is where a little program called Never Ending Referrals comes into play. Now, Tammy Youngst and I have been leading Never Ending Referrals for 7 years. It's one of the most successful MAPS group coaching programs. In fact, if you've taken the most recent bolds, the database content that is in the current bolds was developed and donated to Bold from Never Ending Referrals. And yet it's only about 30% of what we teach in Never Ending Referrals, because Bold has such a broad swath that it's covering. And so the challenge with Never Ending Referrals is, you know, we right now have about 700, well, I'll take it back, about 500 plus enrolled in Never Ending Referrals. We've had as many as 1,200 at any given one time. And the challenge is, through our group program, being part of our community, they learn what they need to learn. And yet I can't see on the other end if they're doing it. And so we made a decision that we were going to bring Never Ending Referrals right into market centers, and that it would be locally facilitated by whether it's a productivity coach, team leader, ALC member, an agent who's just, you know, likes to teach and wants to be a part of driving agents creating change in their business, and to bring a 6-week version of Never Ending Referrals in 6 2.5-hour classes that you can put 30, 50, 60 people in the room and start building at your market center that army of database warriors, those folks that are going to go start building that trusted advisor position over the course of the next 3 years to ideally 700 relationships. And the stated goal of Never Ending Referrals is for you to get to 10% return on your database, which would mean 10% of 700 is 70 transactions a year. Hang on a second, folks. Apologize. Just when you thought you had it whipped, you try to talk and it goes crazy, right? So all this said, you know, let me tell you a little bit about our program, Never Ending Referrals. Never Ending Referrals was developed in about 2014, and it was developed based upon a need that Tony DeCello and I saw when we were out on the Shift book tour back in 2008. We were in a first room we were in was Chicago, Illinois. And we got to the section on databases. We were leading people through Shift. Of course, the United States was in the midst of the Great Recession at this point. And we had a room of 600-700 people. And Tony asked the room when we got to the section on database, He said, how many of you by standing up are touching your relationships, your MET database, 28 to 33 times a year via any channel, whether it's direct mail, email, text, phone, person to person, face to face? Stand up. And about 15% of the room stood up. We're going, okay, that's not good. Could be worse. And it got worse because Tony asked a clarifying question of you guys standing up. How many of you, by remaining standing, included in those 28 to 33 touches, is for either face-to-face or over the phone conversations a year? And folks, it went from being 15% of the room standing to 3% of the room standing. And I would challenge you, if you did this in your market centers today, what do you think the number would be in your market center? Probably not a whole lot better. We're having more conversations around this today, but I would bet that it's not even 10%. And that's where the biggest missed opportunities are, is in the relationships that we already have. And when we developed a little thing called DTD2 in my market centers, as a response to this, we concluded that what was happening is we weren't having a conversation around our agents every single day about how important this was and why it needed to be a priority. And we gamified it with a little thing called DTD2. How many of y'all are familiar with DTD2? Just raise your hand or so. Okay, yeah. And of course, that came from our initial efforts to start solving this problem, is what's the conversation we have around. Now, the way Never Ending Referrals works at the market center level is, let me give you, let me go to screen share, is we've got it broken into 6 sessions, as you can see outlined right here in front of you. And we really break it down to setting their foundation, real fundamentals, starting with Ford, with their GPS, the 4 laws of the database, getting their basic CRM setup put together. Then we get into how do they succeed with their natural behavioral style. I'm a high assertive behavior. The last thing I want to do is have small talk conversations. And that's when I finally learned that I didn't have to be everybody's best friend. I could be their trusted advisor. That fit my behavioral style. And what you'll find is almost every behavioral style has some kind of a limiting belief or hang up that's getting in their way of having these essential conversations. They haven't been taught how to go out and be the trusted advisor, how to create real value in how they market and engage with their relationships. And by the way, how they grow their relationships. And so then, of course, business to grow their database. And we get into how they position through marketing, get into client events. Geofarming is a strong database strategy. And then we get into becoming the trusted advisor. And then, to your comment, we get into video and their 36 touch and pull that all together in session 6. Now, the way this works, in fact, let me pull up something here real quick. It is a video-based, locally facilitated program. And so what happens with each session, there's a workbook for the student. You'll see that demonstrated here. This is one for session 2. And, here we're going through behavior and your behavioral style. We get into overcoming the myths of behavior and how you make your behavior work for you. We get into some market of the moment scripts based upon your behavioral style. How do you make a script or a conversation work for who you are behaviorally? And then we have a second session around forward and active listening. And then, by the way, we have a guest person on the video as well, who takes us through how to acknowledge and validate. It's a skill from NLP. And then we get into social media in session 2. We get into what we call the CARE model: connect, alert, refer, engage, teaching them how to be effective with social media. Now, for the person facilitating the program is set up as a lesson lab format. So the facilitator, who is local, has them in a room, has directions on exactly how to facilitate the program. You'll notice that the first lab is being set up right here after they've done their scoreboard. Then they got the second lab at the 29-minute mark on the video, tells the facilitator exactly what to do. Here's a social media lab at the 47-minute mark. And then the final lab as they wrap up the day. And to give you an idea of kind of what this looks like, let me pull up one of the sample videos for you. You did have this probably in the email that you received, but let me stop the share. And we invested in a high-end cinematographer to do all our video work. So what you'll notice, all the videos are extremely high-end and well put together. And this is just a collage of a few pieces out of sessions 1 and 2. Let me play that for you. Let me make sure I've got it audio enabled.
Welcome, Never Ending Referrals community. My name is Tammy Youngst, and I am joined here by the infamous Steve Schlueter, and we are here to take you on this journey through Never Ending Referrals. You know, Steve, we're going to walk through these 4 laws, over these next 6 sessions together. And we're going to tie all of these together into a tool that we call the GPS. This is the recipe for success. This is the tool that really allows you to say, you know what, these are my strategic options. These are the strategies that I'm going to use to really bring my database to life. And so as you go down through that, turn to the page where we're talking about building your database 145.
So I'm driving down the interstate, that's a few weeks ago, and so I'm going down the interstate and my phone rings and I look at the caller ID and it says Barbara Delamo.
Well, no spoiler alert here, so stay tuned. And yet, how do you succeed getting in and getting out of social media, it not being the black hole that it can sometimes be, and yet let's use it with intention, with purpose. A myth is otherwise known as a story.
So you get the idea there. I won't take you through the whole 4 minutes. And this sample was in the email that we had sent out to you guys if you got it from us. I skipped the Barbara story since you already heard it. Didn't want to make you listen to it again. So jump right through that. And so what will happen is you've got a 2.5-hour session for your associates that you're walking them through. And again, that lesson lab format. The associates do have and will be keeping score. Like anything else, if you want to make sure that people are doing the work, so I guess I didn't have the scorecard up here. You've got to have a scorecard, you've got to have a scoreboard, and this is where you get to see the results happening for our student. One of the things that in all of my market centers, the rookie of the year for the last 3 years has taken Never Ending Referrals multiple times. It's been at the foundation of every rookie of the year that we've had. And so that tells you, in fact, Ken, David Ray's in your office in Austin, Ken, y'all's productivity coach, shared with us, he said they just ran this in their market centers in Austin in October. He said, we really decided we just need to start running this very early in agents' careers because it's the key fundamental. It's the thing they have already is they have relationships. And it's even before Ignite. He said that he was getting feedback. This might even come before Ignite because it's the one fundamental that they all have the ability to access. And if they're going to have a career, a real career in a real business, if they're just prospecting cold leads, if they're just chasing internet leads, they wake up every January 1 and they're asking the question, can I do it over again? And what we want to do is give them the gift of waking up on January 1, knowing where their first 24 or 36 or 48 or more transactions are coming from, because they've built a business that way. And the listings that we desire to get are already in the relationships that they have. And we're just not talking to the people and building a position and building that position as the trusted advisor. So guys, I'm running out of voice. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you, Megan, if you'll put in the chat the link on, how to get to the landing page for the Never Ending Referrals for Market Centers. But let me tell you how this works. It's 6 sessions delivered once a week, 2.5 hours. We encourage you having the same facilitator throughout the 6 weeks. You have access to all the videos, workbooks, resources, guides through our Never Ending Referrals for Market Centers portal. And in fact, let me go ahead and pull that up so you can see what that looks like. Bear with me just a moment. And so you have access to all of the guides and resources. Bear with me. Thought I had that up. All right, here, I'll go pull it up. So when you enroll your Market Center for Never Ending Referrals, you're going to have access for 12 weeks to this portal. And it's a 6-week program, so it gives you time to preview it, play with it, get used to the content, practice. Then if you have a couple of skip weeks because of a holiday or weather, you've got plenty of time to deliver the content. So we take you right through with some introductory videos. We've got promos, we've got downloads, facilitator's guide, but here's session 1. And so what you would do is come to session 1, it says video, guides, workbook, and resources. You click there. The video is available for you to play right out of the portal. You just go to full screen. There's a description of everything that is here. Here on the right, you've got all your downloads. And so the handout, the session 1 workbook, facilitator's guide, scoreboard, scorecard, everything's right here, ready for you to facilitate Never Ending Referrals in your Market Center. The investment to host it in your Market Center is $1,398. It's $466 a month for 3 months. So you pay it out over the 3-month period. That totals, again, $1,398. What we did in San Antonio, we just ran 38 people in it for $49 per person. And so we generated $1,800 in revenue on a $1,399 investment, which paid for, us doing nice color copies of their materials, having a nice binder. And so essentially we did it all zero base. Now, maybe you find an advertiser, somebody that could come in and sponsor possibly that for you. There's all kinds of different ways to do it if zero base, if you choose. So let me pause and I'll answer any questions you have. I am out of voice, and so that's all you got from me today, guys. But I will answer some questions.
There's
I'll take an aha or two.
There's also a multi-market center discount. So if y'all have the same OP for multiple market centers, y'all can contact us at info@neverendingreferrals.com, and we have codes. So if the same OP for 2 centers, it's 20% off. For 3 centers, it's 30% off, and for 4 or more, it's 35% off.
Yeah, again, so it's info@neverendingreferrals.com for questions. Apologize for the voice today, guys. Any questions? Or it would take a couple of ahas though. David, you're about to be a team leader. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I had a question. Does it matter if, so one's a market center and one's technically a business center? Does that count, or?
Counts as one.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So no upcharge there for the business center. So that's all included as long as it's under the same market center number.
Okay.
Yeah. Give me an aha or two for you guys that are agents out there.
Steve, you are a great realtor.
35 years of this, you kind of figure it out after a while, right?
Yeah, good.
That's like, start at 23 and, get your hard knocks and start in a tough market. You figure out how to make this work. And become a warrior at it. And boy,
Yeah,
we got to
I
develop.
started at Keller Williams March of '86.
There you go. There you go. You're 6 months
And
ahead of me. 8 months ahead of me.
also tried to recruit you on a closing, and you said,
So you're the reason I missed out on so much profit share because you didn't get me recruited sooner. Damn it, David.
I got 983 people on my downline.
You've done well, my friend. You've done well. Any other thoughts, questions, cares, concerns? Portugal, it's getting evening time there. Y'all ready to go out and have some little dinner?
Yes, yes, it is.
Thank you for tuning in from Portugal. And I believe that all of this will, translate well to pretty much any market. Relationships are relationships, folks. And the listings we seek are in those relationships. And any questions about implementing this? There is one other thing that I would say is a great companion for this, if I can put my hand on one real quick, is I wrote a book that's a parable, a business fiction book on the fundamentals of never-ending referrals. It's called Rescue Dogs in Real Estate. And if you haven't grabbed it, go to Amazon, grab you a copy. It's on Audible as well, if you've got Audible and you like to listen. And it's really, it tells the story of the journey of an agent who was struggling to find the success through online leads and everything else. And then finally, upon adopting the relationships in the database, what can happen to transform one's business. So folks, thank you for being here today. Again, info@neverendingreferrals.com. I will be gone for till the end of the month, but our operations manager, Megan, will be monitoring that. And fasttrack@kw.com is also a resource if you have questions while we're out. So thank you, folks.